Welcome back to Unapologetically Visible, the podcast for high achieving Latina and women of color founders who are done being the best kept secret. I'm your host, Christina Olivarez, award winning visibility and leadership coach, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of the Social Butterfly Gal and Hustle and Socialize. Today's episode is really going to be diving into the neurological effects that the internet has had on our visibility and the impact it's had in our nervous system. Because whether or not we want to admit it, we are being neurologically overworked by the internet. And we're not just emotionally tired, we are fundamentally burnt out. We are neurologically overworked, and our nervous systems are asking to hold an unprecedented amount of information all at once. And it is a constant threat. It's moral responsibility. And sometimes for our visibility, it is such a huge consequence, way more than we ever thought it could be on our nervous systems for us to actually hold. I see it in myself. I see it a lot in my clients and in my coaching programs. And I just see it in the way that smart, capable leaders start second guessing their visibility because of the information overload that they have when they are on the internet. Sometimes we wonder why our decisions feel heavier than they used to. And a lot of the times, because of the access that we have, our confidence starts feeling really harder to access because we are constantly looking at other content and others on the internet and feel like their highlight reel is the whole entire story. And for some of us, it just feels like we're never really doing enough. That's why our leadership feels more tender and careful. It feels more restrained. And that's the cost of, unfortunately, being on the internet and being visible because our nervous system is scanning for risk in how we speak or when we don't speak up, how we pause, how we second guess things, and of course, in how we lead. And that often leads to burnout, inconsistency with our messages, and lack of clarity of direction and focus when it comes to our strategy, our messaging, and of course, in our brand message. Now, I definitely want to say before we go further into the neurological overload of the internet, I do want to preface that I am not a neuroscientist. I'm not here to cite studies or pretend to be that expert or authority on the brain and on the internet, but I am somebody who has spent decades inside digital ecosystems, building brands and leading rooms and coaching founders and watching in real time how constant visibility and constant access to the internet reshapes how we think and how we feel and how we make decisions. It's that invisible pressure that shapes exactly how we think and speak, decide, and lead in this constant era of exposure. And so I want us to slow down today enough to start naming that invisible load that maybe you've been carrying. The hyper awareness, the feeling of being watched even when you're silent, and the responsibility of holding community, safety, your visibility, and your livelihood all at once. So in today's episode, we're going to have an honest conversation about why visibility itself has become neurologically unsafe for so many leaders and how nonstop consumption, real-time injustices, and the pressure to respond quietly erodes discernment and trains us to override our intuition just for the name of optics. This episode is going to be challenging the idea that leadership requires constant expression and offering a different standard. Instead, using leadership and our visibility as regulation and as timing and protecting the room that you're meant to lead next. So I want to start first by naming the invisible load. Latina and women of color leaders are being asked to live in a state of constant hyper awareness. We are being inundated with awareness when it comes to political shifts and social consequences, awareness around the violence and injustices that are unfolding in real time, awareness in how our audience's words and how our words are being interpreted, awareness in how our silence might be read by our audience and by our most aligned buyers, and awareness in how speaking up could be punished. And this isn't just intellectual awareness, it's somatic and it lives in our body. We are carrying this level of vigilance while running our companies and paying our team members, supporting our families, navigating motherhood or the desire of it, all while holding our economic responsibility. And often it's not just for ourselves, but for our entire ecosystems of people who rely on our steadiness and our visibility. We are watching the world fracture in real time, and it's now in the palm of our hands with just the click of a button on our phones. I mean, remember the days when we never had access to the internet on our phones? We had to get the dial up and get on the internet on our computer, which is completely different now than what we have. But a lot of us just are being inundated with this constant rapid information because of the notifications and the 24/7 access that we have to the internet in the palm of our hand. And so we're being told to stay visible, to stay articulate, to stay relevant, and constantly create content. I mean, we are creating content almost from the moment we wake up to the end of when we get to bed. And that does something for our entire nervous system. It makes this heavy, especially for Latina and women of color leaders, because our bodies are not experiencing this information as abstract or distant. A lot of this is living in our cultural memory. And sometimes it goes back to all of our ancestors and the memory that it is imprinted in us. And so our nervous systems aren't just processing constant information, they are scanning for safety while being fed threat after threat after threat. I mean, think about it, right? When the moment we open our phones and we automatically get onto social media or we see a news notification, automatically we are being seen as this is not safe. Being on the internet is not safe. Our world is not safe. There is a huge threat. And so from there, we become irritable and disconnected and just unsure of how do we even run our businesses on the internet. I see this constantly with the clients that I coach. I mean, these are women who are incredibly smart and capable and deeply competent. These are founders that, are changing the trajectory of generations through their income and what they've been able to do in their business. And a lot of them, when we are working in our private coaching program, a lot of them tend to tell me, Christina, I feel like I'm always bracing. I don't know when it's safe to speak anymore. I feel like I don't know how to get it right with my content. And sometimes I feel like my content is not even enough. And I'm just so exhausted that I feel like I sometimes can't even put my phone down because of doom scrolling. And that's our nervous system under chronic, relentless load. And here's the part we rarely say out loud. Latina and women of color leaders are not just consuming content, we are being watched while we consume it. A lot of us are being watched for our reactions, our responses, and the moral alignment and the correctness and tone in our visibility. That constant awareness, I am being seen even when I am silent, is super exhausting. So if you feel like it's just super heavy lately when it comes to your visibility, that doesn't mean that you're shrinking. It just means that your nervous system is doing its job. And what I mean by your nervous system is doing its job is that your nervous system is trying to really keep you safe as it scans for the threats. Now, let's talk about why visibility itself has started to feel unsafe. The internet rewards speed, it rewards immediacy, and of course, these algorithms are designed to make any type of reaction go viral. And it rewards anybody who does specific hot takes or any type of spicy content. And that's how a lot of us are just processing in real time. We're seeing real time reactions, real time, unedited, unfiltered, unprocessed reactions. And our nervous system is completely terrified in that, because our nervous system is built for that rhythm and that integration, and it's not meant for constant exposure or judgment, especially decision making in public view. When perpetual consumption is paired with perpetual commentary, that's when our discernment erodes. When you're always reacting, you're responding under pressure. And that's always one of the most misunderstood patterns that I see in my coaching work is the fear of being misunderstood, especially when it comes with I need to explain myself constantly. When you feel like you need to explain yourself constantly in your content, that is a trauma response. We see leaders that tend to overspeak or over contextualize. Now, of course, if you are somebody who is selling specific programs that are 4, 5 figure investments, of course, you're going to have to over contextualize. But when we're just talking regular types of content, talking to the camera or creating something that allows you to tell its story, we see leaders sometimes over contextualize and try to clarify before anybody has any other questions. And that's because our nervous system is trying to minimize the perceived risk and the perceived threat. And overspeaking comes with that cost. It teaches your body that your truth is always going to require permission. And it teaches your audience that access to your inner world is super immediate and unlimited. And that's when we see our visibility quietly turn into self-abandonment. Because immediately, whenever you are built to respond very quickly without taking a step back, it's overriding your gut in favor of that optics. And it's telling you that you need to hurry up and respond quickly so that your audience can get a rise out of you. I've coached clients out of posting things that they felt compelled to say very quickly. And it wasn't because their messaging was wrong, but it was because the timing was super dysregulated. I've watched those same leaders come back to me weeks later and speak from a place that was steadier, clearer, and far more authoritative because their words were no longer carrying the fear or the urgency. Not every moment requires your voice, and not every moment requires a gut reaction. Those are not the same things. One of the biggest things that really helped me when it came to my own visibility was when I was finding my voice. I feel like over the years, I've been really able to come out of my shell a little bit more and have more of a stance, more of opinions, more of my lived experience because I have been finding my voice and I've been challenging myself to exercise finding my voice specifically. That's usually a question that I get asked often by interns or anybody that I'm mentoring. They always tell me, how did you find your confidence? What are some things that you did that allowed you to find your voice? And the simple answer is I started to block out the noise and focus on my own voice. I used to be super consumed in other people's opinions, other people's thoughts, other people's lived experiences that I almost started mimicking it, and it was starting to erode in my own content. And a lot of the times when leaders do this, it really intersects with their own opinions and their own expertise because now they are mimicking another creator or another leader's perspective. And so one of the ways that I just simply found my voice was letting myself be seen while I was still figuring out. A lot of the times we think that everything with our visibility has to be perfect, that we can't start until we are ready. We can't take up space until we are ready. But the simple truth and the simple thing that happened to me was my visibility was the work. I wanted to be able to be seen making mistakes because if I am seen making a mistake, that means one, I am not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But also, it's my leadership in real time. So if I am speaking up, if I am using my voice and I am learning how to use that voice, that's all that mattered. Anyone's opinions or perceptions or thoughts about who I was had to go out the window because at the end of the day, I know where my heart lies. I know the actions that I do in my own life to support my family and my community. And I know at the end of the day, I need to be able to stand tall and stand and hold myself accountable to the work that I was doing. And that also meant that I really needed to understand my nervous system and the triggers that the internet was having on my life. And so when we think about the neurological effects of the internet and our nervous system, one of the biggest things that I think really changed my life was during the pandemic. I decided to not have my phone with me at all times as I was getting ready to go to bed. I set this non negotiable rule that I still implement 6 years later. This is still a non negotiable rule. But what I ended up doing was I made a rule that I was not going to look at social media when I was getting ready for bed or first thing in the morning. I needed to fill my cup up first before I even sat down to have a cup of coffee. And that meant that I was going to put my phone on do not disturb starting at 9 p.m. at night. I was going to leave my phone charging in another room. So that way I have an opportunity to get up from my bed to go turn off my alarm in the morning. And I was going to leave my phone on do not disturb until 8:30 the next morning. And I was not going to get on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any type of social media. I was going to fill my cup up first. And the number one thing that I was going to do to fill my cup up in the morning was move my body. That was number one. So I had to get some type of workout in order to move my body. It had to be like a 20-minute workout, 20 to 30 minute. And then the second thing I was going to do was meditate and journal and create before I consumed. That is a huge thing that I want you to know is that it's super important to create before you consume any type of media. You want to fill your thoughts up first with things that are so beautiful and important to you before getting on the internet. And so I really wanted to journal out my thoughts, and then listen to a podcast. So obviously, I'm still consuming other people's media first thing in the morning, but it's super important that I'm not scrolling. I'm not filling my head up with, "Oh, I don't feel enough." Like I am setting myself up for success that I need to have. And I also make a decision that if the news and if anything is triggering me, especially when it comes to people, I have control over my visibility and the media I consume. So if somebody is triggering me, then I know that I have full autonomy and authority to block or unfollow an account. And that is like the most precious thing that I think we tend to forget that we actually have full control over. I also know that I have full control over my algorithm. I can decide if I don't want to see this type of content anymore. I can decide to fill my algorithm with things that make me happy. One of the things that really makes me happy is Sesame Street and Elmo. And so anytime I feel like I'm consuming way too much media and just way too much news, I try to find happy things that are going to fill my cup up first. So when we think about our visibility and finding our voice, and also just being inundated with media and our nervous system, it's really important to think about these specific questions. Number one, what am I doing right now to prioritize safety in my nervous system, especially when I am consuming content on the internet? Number two, what am I doing to protect my voice, to protect my leadership, and to protect finding my voice? And number three, does this platform expand my leadership or does it drain it? So I want to slow down for a minute and do a little mini coaching session. If you're able, I want you to take a breath and I want you to ask yourself this question. What am I taking in right now that my nervous system is not agreeing to hold? Where do I find the pull to speak? Not because I'm clear, but because I'm afraid of being understood if I don't. And what would leadership look like in this season if I trusted my timing and my voice more than the algorithm and other people's reactions and expectations? I want you to notice what your body is already feeling and understanding how to better regulate yourself and your visibility and your nervous system. And I also want you to know that you don't have to be visible on these platforms when you feel like your nervous system is on overdrive. It is completely okay and super valid to put your phone away, to get yourself to a place that's super regulated, and to be able to come back with your visibility in a more sustainable and stable place. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do next. Subscribe and leave a review because that helps this podcast reach more women like us, women who are never meant to stay hidden, women who are meant to be highly visible leaders. Share this episode with someone you love who is having a hard time with their nervous system, especially being on the internet. And DM me on Instagram at the Social Butterfly Gal. Tell me your biggest reframe, your biggest breakthrough from today's conversation, and what kind of support you need in this season. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, to recalibrate your personal brand, leadership, and your visibility, I would love to support you through one-on-one coaching. You can find the coaching information and the offers and the links in the show notes below, or send me a DM with the word coaching, and I will personally walk you through what offers are in alignment with your current season and what it looks like to step into this next era with clarity, confidence, and unapologetic authority. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and for all the shares of reviews. Remember this, you didn't come this far to play safe. You came here to be unapologetically visible. I'll see you next week.